Welcome to Conversations with Ann Elizabeth, the podcast inspired by my book, I'm a Registered Dietitian, Now What?, where I have the absolute joy to sit back, relax, and have a conversation about nutrition with a variety of people who share their personal story of passion and purpose, especially registered dietitians. Today's conversation is with Dr. Claudia Felty, a recovered calorie counter, dessert-loving dietitian, educator, and dog mom who dreams big without diets. A couple of years ago, I met Claudia at Felty during a networking event. I felt as if I had met her before or knew her from some other professional group I was in. Then I remembered how we connected on social media. She had been doing a series of educational videos on a variety of hot topics in nutrition, and I thought they were amazing. While we were talking in person, I learned more about her educational journey to becoming Dr. Claudia and her passion for intuitive and mindful eating. This woman is my intuitive eating go-to and someone I admire for how she is using her expertise in health communications to educate the world on food freedom. Please enjoy my awesome conversation with Claudia. Well, why don't you take me back to the beginning of your journey as a registered dietitian and what kind of got you into thinking about wanting to be a dietitian and getting into the nutrition field?
Yeah, so I didn't even know a dietitian was a thing, and I didn't even know that nutrition could be like a viable career growing up. So that wasn't even something that was on my radar. I went to school for business before I got into nutrition, and I was actually a mortgage broker. So I'm a second career dietitian.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Yep. So I did that for quite some time out in California, and the mortgage meltdown kind of happened in 2008, and that gave me an opportunity to really decide what do I really want to do. So I went back to school to finish up some general science credits and stumbled upon a nutrition class, and I just fell in love with it. And I was pretty shocked, that I had no idea this was even a career option. So I researched it out and found out that Arizona State University offered the dietetics program in the undergrad and then the internship in the master's. And I was like, well, I'm just going to go for it. So I went ahead and finished up those general science credits and transferred everything over to ASU and finished out my bachelor's, and then decided to stay for the master's and for the combined internship. And then through that process, I fell in love with research. So I stayed for my PhD.
That's amazing. And it's amazing that you went from such a different career to diet. Were you always kind of a person that enjoyed nutrition and food and health and things like that personally?
So I think nutrition was one of those things that I never understood. So I didn't grow up understanding what it was. I always struggled with my weight, and I never really understood, what was healthy, what wasn't healthy, what really you should be eating. I didn't really have any of that guidance. So when I took the nutrition class, I was like, oh, this is what's been missing. And so I just jumped right into it.
So maybe it was a little personal, just kind of quest of your own to understand nutrition better.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It was that was a huge factor to it. And I think anything that we do that we're able to do with passion has to have some sort of personal relationship with it.
That's completely, because you can't really 100% be vested in something if you don't feel a passion for it.
No, you can't. And when I was a mortgage broker, that was not passionate at all. That was very cut and dry.
I was going to ask how you kind of got into that. Was it just something that you kind of fell into doing mortgage and business and things like that? Or was it a family business or? So
I actually, my stepmom, at the time, was an escrow officer. And so she's, always working with mortgage brokers and things like that. And so that's really how I got interested in it. But other than that, I didn't really have a direction. And I was like, well, I can do this as a job that works. until I was afforded the opportunity to, actually pursue my passions.
It paid the bills for a little while.
Oh,
right?
yeah. It definitely did.
Sometimes we have to do those jobs to figure out, I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. So what's next?
And I'm definitely one of those people that I have to do it hands-on to decide if I like it or not. I can't read about it in a book or have someone else tell me about it. Like, I have to try it. So, I've tried a lot of different professions.
Have you? What else have you tried? I'm interested.
Oh, goodness. So I've done the mortgage broker thing. I actually, before I took the nutrition class, I was thinking about going into nursing. So I got my certification as a certified nursing assistant and did that for a while and realized I definitely was not cut out to be a nurse. I thought I could get over my fear of blood without passing out, and I could not.
Oh, no. No, that's not good.
Yeah, no. So, definitely sticking with the food.
Yes, that's true. Oh, gosh. Well, yeah, that's interesting how you feel like you really need to kind of get into it. And did you feel like you needed to get into it with nutrition or like get some experience before you kind of went back to school or some shadowing or?
So I feel like that was so personal that I felt like I could just go for it.
Huh. It was calling you.
Yeah. It just drug me right in.
So that was, again, probably a good indication that you were headed in the right direction because you didn't even feel the need to work in it or anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did a lot of stuff, during like my undergrad and then during the master's and stuff, like different volunteer stuff. So I kind of I use that portion of my personality during that time. And I definitely realized that that's definitely the track that I want to do. So.
What kind of research did you focus on since you recently have just gotten out of doing research? What did you focus your research on?
So my master's and my PhD were very, very different. The master's, and I kind of cringe at my research right now because I studied weight loss and smartphone apps. And as you know, I'm a non-diet dietitian. At that point, clearly I was not. But I did learn a lot from that study. And I took a lot of that, the information that I learned, and I use that in my, non-diet work now, knowing how that research really looks from the researcher's perspective. And then for my PhD work, I wanted to focus on nutrition communications. So I actually studied the social media competency of registered dietitians.
Wow. That's really interesting. How do you study that?
So it's brand new. So I was actually the first person to do it. I was able to use some validated research from other fields that basically what they did is they measured social media competency through various like self-efficacy, a person's ability to understand and relay communication through technology, whether or not their work supports their ability to do that or not. And I partnered with the School of Journalism. So ASU has the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism, and I partnered with the faculty there to integrate that with the nutrition department.
Wow, that's really interesting. Both are very interesting in how it's developed you as a dietitian.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have nutrition communications is such an interesting field, and it's such a new field that I really felt like I was able to, make my mark on that research.
And we'll get into kind of more about just you being a dietitian, but I'm always interested about people who go and continue their education, getting your master's and getting your PhD. And maybe you can talk a little bit more about people that are considering both options. Right now there is going to be a push to go get your master's, obviously, for the newer dietitians. And then,
that's going to be a requirement soon, right?
Yes. Yes, for the newer dietitians. But like, say for me, or say for someone who's considering going back to school, how do you feel that your further education, do you think that's something that we should all kind of be pursuing and looking at? Or what do you, because I know you said you like research, so that definitely was perfect for you. But as maybe someone who doesn't love research, but would like to teach or would like to do something else, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I really think it's really individual. And I think if you had asked me this before I went in, my answer probably would have been completely different. Because I honestly, like, through the PhD, I learned a lot about, why you do a PhD and what jobs usually require a PhD. Because obviously you're spending your time and you're spending your money investing into these programs, and you need to know what you're going to get out of it before you go into it, I think is probably the best advice that I could give someone.
Sure. Because, if you don't need a PhD, I don't feel, and just with my experience, that necessarily is going to be something that propels your career if it's not needed in the field you want to go into. Yeah,
absolutely. If it's not what, like, just like you said, if it's not required for what you want to do, then doing it doesn't really make any sense. So for me, it makes sense because I wanted the ability to teach other dietitians how to use social media correctly, and propel their businesses and propel the field forward. And I felt that I had the ability to do that using the resources that I had at the university that I wouldn't have had anywhere else.
That's very true. And I think, and I feel like there's a lot of dietitians that are kind of doing this without the education piece. They're trying to definitely help educate dietitians on how to use social media. So how does working maybe with you and getting education through you differ from someone that doesn't have that PhD or have that education?
Absolutely. So obviously there's definitely a real world piece to social media. You need to know how to operate the systems and propel content through it, which is something that I do in my day-to-day work. That wasn't necessarily a component when I was in the PhD. I was more focused on communication styles and understanding how news media would carry content forward, which I think is a huge component that you're not going to get from somebody that only understands, one platform versus another, instead of having like a whole understanding of communication and how to properly format your messages for your particular audience. And obviously that's something news media has done very, very well for a very long time. And working with those individuals, I think, is a huge upside, because I have a much more in-depth background of how to propel those messages. And I also have a more in-depth understanding of what dietitians need specifically, because of the fact that, I conducted the research on a nationwide dietitian sample that, they were able to tell me, what they did for a living, how much time that they can commit to the platforms, where they're struggling, where they're succeeding. So I think it makes a huge difference.
You just have more insight. More of what the average dietitian is actually looking at when they are on their social media platforms and what they're trying to do.
Yeah. And I think it's a huge benefit for dietitians that maybe, they're older dietitians that didn't grow up with social media, having the ability to communicate how to operate these platforms, I think is a huge benefit, because younger dietitians definitely have the advantage on these platforms because they've grown up with them. They've had the experience with them. They're integrated into their lives more. Whereas individuals that are a little bit older, a lot of this stuff is brand new and it's foreign.
Oh, yeah. And they're just like, I don't even want to start it because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It can definitely feel overwhelming and frustrating if you're not sure where to start. And having a system in place that shows you step by step how to not only start social media, but to build your own brand, if that's what you're desiring, it's what propels you forward instead of holding you back.
That's kind of true. And have I know you have your own business, and I know that, were you doing this during kind of your whole schooling too? Like, you were working with people and you were still conducting your business stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been, basically since about halfway through my master's, I've been doing nutrition counseling. And then after that, throughout the PhD, I've been doing nutrition counseling, scientific counseling, consulting work with companies and businesses and brands. And then after the PhD was when I went ahead and developed the courses specifically for dietitians.
That's awesome. I did see that you've had some different courses that you offer. And what are you offering to the public that can help them with their branding and their business?
Absolutely. For dietitians specifically, or other related health professionals, I have a social media mastery course available for them. It offers 55 continuing education credits for registered dietitians. Personal trainers will also be able to get continuing education, or physician's assistants, or doctors if they chose to. I offer that course specifically at this time just for dietitians or those other health professionals. I don't offer it to the general public because, again, I want to make sure that the individuals that are relaying the nutrition information have the background to do so. I think that's really, really important. As far as classes for the public, I have an intuitive eating course that will be coming out in the next couple of months here, that will serve my nutrition counseling clients.
That's exciting. I'm always curious, 55 credit hours, that's a lot of credit hours.
It's a lot.
CEU contact hours. Yeah. How do you go about kind of putting together a class like that is valuable? I mean, that has to take a lot of work and a lot of time.
It does. It definitely does. There's a lot of work, the blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of love in that course. And obviously I want everyone to be successful. I think that that's really important. It's not just about, here, learn this information. It's, let's move you through this information. Now you're going to put that into practice, and then we're going to figure out what works for your niche and what doesn't. So there's a lot of trial and testing built into the course, and you get that support. So it's not just an online course where you take it and then you learn the information and you move on. If you're willing to participate, obviously I'm there to support you the whole way. We have like a private group, and we do monthly live streaming in that group so that the students can really dive into the problems that they're facing on social media so that I can assist them directly, which I think is super important. But developing that course, because I've taught college courses for years now, course creation is just something that kind of comes natural to me at this point.
Oh, I'm sure if you were teaching college classes, then that's probably very easy for you to put that together and to make that creative.
Yeah. And I've even been lucky enough to teach digital technologies for nutrition communications course for the university. So, it's very much my specialty area to teach that to nutrition students and to dietitians.
I can't believe that's even a course. When I was going through school.
No, I mean, it wasn't available either when I was an undergrad. So I feel like that's one of the things that I really love, because I feel like I'm helping to pave the way to really important information that people need to know for their private businesses and their brands. They need to know this information, but it's very hard to get in a university setting. It's just not available. So to be able to help move that forward, it's a huge honor.
That's you're very progressive that the school is, I'm sure you're saying to the school, let's do this and let's giving them ideas to kind of do some different things like that. And that's great that they're responding and saying, yes, we agree that should be a component.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm lucky that the faculty they're fantastic. And I mean, to be honest, I was the first person to create my dissertation in the way that I did in that program.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
tell me about that. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, nobody before me had ever collaborated with a journalism school. That was completely foreign to them. It wasn't something that they were used to the nutrition students doing. I think that they thought that maybe it would have been more appropriate to go to maybe like a journalism PhD, but it just didn't make sense with the way nutrition is communicated. I really felt like I needed the support from the nutrition faculty and the journalism faculty, and it ended up working out amazingly. So they're now allowing other students to do things that are similar, but I definitely paved the way for that, and it wasn't easy. So.
There you go. Not. I bet you had a lot of conversations and meetings and what was exhausting.
Oh yeah. I mean, tons of pushback, because when something's new, not everyone agrees with it. Not everyone understands it. So it's really learning to make your case for something. And, when you know something is right and it needs to be done, you just have to stick to your guns.
Well, and that shows your passion for it too. Like you were like, no, this is a space that we need to be in and I really want to pursue it. And sometimes we have to toot our own horns a little bit. And
yes.
That's hard for dietitians, I think.
Yeah, we tend to under toot. So.
We do. We don't do it enough. And I think it's great that you're pioneering that space.
Oh, thank you.
Hopefully it kind of gets going in other places too, because I think there's definitely a need, or just using you as a resource with your expertise as well as you're developing more and more things for us dietitians.
Absolutely.
So the other entity of your business is your individual counseling. So talk to me about, like you said, you've definitely changed your ways of thought when it came to nutritional counseling and helping others. So talk to me about, your passion about intuitive eating.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, this all goes back to why I love nutrition in the first place. And it definitely took me on a really interesting road and journey to get to this place. Like I said, I mean, as a kid, I struggled with my weight, pretty severely. And as I moved into my early 20s and things like that, diet culture was very much something that was very prominent in my life. Controlling my weight has definitely been at the forefront of a significant portion of my life. So when I went into nutrition, obviously my goals were to understand this more so I could help other people control their weight, because I didn't understand that that's not really an acceptable goal. It wasn't something that that's really widely talked about in dietetic circles at this point, or when I was in my undergrad. So my undergrad was very much focused on, counting calories and grams of fat and carbohydrates and proteins. And I think it's really important to have the foundation of the science of how that works. And I teach some of those classes now. But I do teach them in a different way with a different perspective than I would have, prior to me coming to this understanding. So when I really started to get the non-diet approach, the first inkling I even had at it was in my macronutrient metabolism class. It was the last semester of my undergrad, and it was the last class. So it was like a week before graduation. And my professor brought in one of the PhD students. He's now a professor at ASU, but he's in the exercise physiology side, so he's not nutrition specifically. But she brought him in to talk to us about health at every size and how a calorie in versus a calorie out doesn't really work out. And this has been something that I have been thinking my entire life, that, you know, I follow these regimented diets and you're supposed to lose this amount, and that's not what happens. And so for me to hear that the last semester of, like, the last week of the last semester of my undergrad, I remember I looked at one of my friends who was sitting next to me, and we were like, why are we talking about this now? Shouldn't we have been talking about this 3 years ago? Like, what? Mm-hmm. We're supposed to walk out the door. You just, like, shattered everything that we believed. So it was kind of like, it definitely took me back. But then I knew I was going in for the master's. So I wasn't, like, I didn't get too concerned at that moment, because I knew I was going to be taking courses from the professor that did the research that this individual is discussing. Okay. And so I took those courses, and I started to realize that, you know, we should not be prescribing diets to people. This doesn't work. And I struggled with that back and forth of how do I go about doing my job and be ethical about it, and still help these people who are calling me and wanting help with weight loss. Like, how do I do this? So I started to dive more into health at every size practitioners and more non-diet dietitians. And I mean, the community is wonderful. And I'm thankful that I had the exposure at the university level to the professors that I did, in the exercise science that, taught this work, because it makes a huge difference for myself and my clients.
And again, it goes back to that personal journey of yours, because like you said, it wasn't working. Things were not working for you. And so,
yeah, I mean, like, how do you go out there when you know, like, something's not working for you and tell somebody else to do it? Like, it just does not feel right.
No, there's a total disconnect in that. And I think, you kind of think there's a lot of dietitians that are scared to kind of like look at that and say, this is okay that I don't agree with this. Let's look at what else is out there. So you're kind of aligning how you feel with how you practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think for dietitians, there's definitely two camps. There's the diet camp, and then there's the non-diet camp. And I think there's three. I also think there's another group that is in the middle, and they're not sure what to do. And I think it's one of those things that, when you go through a dietetics education and then you go to practice dietetics as a registered dietitian, and you realize that, you know, these equations and things like that, they don't necessarily pan out in real life, you start to question the integrity of your entire education, I think, sometimes. And if you push away from that, does that mean that who you are and what you are doing is not valid? And it's a tough thing to wrestle with. I definitely think it is, but I think I'm hopeful in the future that more dietetics programs will talk about mindful and intuitive eating more, because the research is there.
Well, that's just it. I mean, there's definitely a science, there's research behind it. I mean, and you explain that even in your own personal social media through videos and things that you try to, I think you kind of educate the public, but you're also educating other professionals too.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I mean, because, you know, not every professional has the same exposure to the same research. We just don't. It really depends on, you know, what your program's focus is. So some programs focus more on like community nutrition. Some focus more on clinical nutrition. Some have a much more broader focus. So I think when you come out of your program and you start working as a registered dietitian, or if in my case, working as a registered dietitian and then also getting a PhD, what I anticipated when I started my bachelor's degree, what I would have thought, how I would have thought your education goes from like, okay, I don't understand this, and now it's black and white. I do understand it. It's black and white. I do understand it. And I felt like at the beginning of my education journey, it would have, become more and more clear. And when you get a PhD, you realize everything is very much gray. And when you realize the depth of gray that occurs in nutrition science, having that black and white mentality towards nutrition counseling just isn't possible anymore.
That is great because you're right. Well, and don't you kind of feel like when you are in the research and you are in the science and you're in between that, I mean, there's constantly science is changing all the time. And like you said, we can't keep up on it. It's almost impossible to keep up on the science. So even for you, you probably only saw a small amount in your area too.
Definitely. And as a PhD, you really only should see a small amount, because if you're not only focusing in on your one specific focus area, then you're not doing your job. So that's not somebody like a researcher's fault by any means. If they have grants focused on, a certain project, then that's really all they should be focusing on is those specific topic areas. Someone who's specialized in vascular research shouldn't really know what's going on with, your, I don't know,
kidney function, or maybe, I don't know, kidney function would be part of it, but I know what you're saying.
I was like, well, your feet. And I was like, no,
I would probably work with that too.
But I'm like, but veins run there. So I don't know.
Veins are all over the place. but no, I know what
I'm saying. Like someone who focuses in on, glucose metabolism isn't going to focus in on, renal function or something specifically.
Yes, so true. And I think that, when the word diet isn't anything, even if it is as a dietitian or as not a dietitian, it's still a diet regardless of what it is. So you have to be able to be open to different forms of ways to help people along their wellness journey.
Absolutely. And I think, and that's what to be honest, I'm trying to stay gray because, I feel like if you can stay gray, that, you're admitting that you do not know everything. You are always willing and open to learn new things. And I think that's really important. And I also don't want to ever put down or disregard somebody else's experience. And if something specifically that I don't necessarily research-wise agree with, but is working for someone, I would never put them down for that, because that's just because the research right now doesn't agree with you doesn't mean it's not working for you. And I think acknowledging that experience is really important.
So how did you get more education about, intuitive eating, and what did you, obviously you got that little component in undergrad. There probably wasn't a lot of education in your master's and in areas. So did you have to seek that out, create that yourself?
I had to seek that out. Because and to be honest, I think with a lot of topics, I think you have to seek out the information you're looking for. Otherwise, it's not going to just be presented to you, not necessarily. Excuse me. But as far as the mindful intuitive eating, there is not one course, I don't think, available in the state of Arizona.
Not yet. You haven't created it yet.
Exactly. You guys are listening. I'm more than willing. Yes. But there's not one specifically on mindful and intuitive eating, but the courses I was able to take were from an exercise physiologist's perspective on health at every size. And getting that health at every size education really opened up the doors to say, okay, well, if everyone can be healthy at every size, if this is legitimately what the research is saying, there has to be another path than, counting every calorie or, weighing your food or any of those options. And especially when I saw research that showed, low fat diets and low carb diets are equally as effective, but then you stop observing people after 2 years. And I mean, everyone gains the weight back over and over. And like, why is that happening? And we have a very hard time explaining, why these things happen. And then I started to delve into, mindful and intuitive eating. Luckily the Health at Every Size professor, it was Dr. Glenn Gazer. He knows Evelyn Tribole pretty well. So I got introduced to that. And then, another professor there, actually wrote one of the little intro snippets about the book for Dr. Michelle May of Am I Hungry? And so I started reading their books, and I started looking up the research because they cite a lot of the research, which then kind of sends you down a rabbit trail of even more research. And so I just started reading more and more and more. And, the more I read, the more I realized, yes, this works. And, when you're working with clients and, they've had gastric bypass and done Weight Watchers and they're not having any success, well, then, we really have to change the conversation, I think.
For sure. And then you apply those principles to your own life as well.
Oh, absolutely. Every day.
You live it every day.
It's every day. So it's definitely, some days more than others that, you realize that you're focusing in on those principles, obviously. But yeah, for me, it's made a world of difference for me. I'm a recovered calorie counter. I used to track everything. That's why I was studying smartphone applications and weight loss in my master's degree. Because that's what I was doing. That's what I was living. And, it backfired.
Sure.
Bad.
Do you mind sharing just kind of, like you shared earlier, you're like, you struggled with your weight younger. So when you kind of switched over, do you mind sharing like how things changed for you personally with your health when you kind of went from the calories counter, recovered calorie counter, I like that, to intuitive eating?
So it was definitely a process. You have that, even when you are about to have a, master's degree in nutrition and you're a dietitian, you want what you're taught to work. And when that stops working for you and then starts to actually have pretty serious negative impacts like weight gain, higher triglycerides, those kinds of things. When you have that happen to you, you're not really sure what you should be doing. Because intuitive eating, since it's not taught to dietitians at a college level, there's not a direct path to learn that and learn those principles of how to incorporate that in your own life, let alone teach someone else until you actually go through the whole process, I think. There's some courses now, but back then there wasn't. So
Sure. Yeah.
And for me, it just not being so focused on calories, not being so focused on, the weight on the scale, being more focused on, how I feel and the things I like to do, to move my body instead of, well, I need to burn 600 calories at the gym today. What are we going to do that, whether I enjoy it or not? That's not a fun way to live. So I have freedom now that I didn't have before. Time. Yeah, it's an obsession. It's an obsession. You know, you're doing this for a living, so you already have that portion of your day cut out, and then and then you're obsessed with it on your own. It's all encompassing and all involving. And when you're stressed out because you have to, you know, go meet family members out at a restaurant, or, you know, you're stressed out because you have to go to a barbecue, like that's just ridiculous. There's no reason to live like that.
I kind of agree. And to deny yourself things because you're like, it frustrates me when people are like, I can't have that. It's like, why? I'm always like, why? Right.
And then like, lo and behold, you're like secretly eating it anyway. You just won't admit, you know, like it's just, and that's the other thing. Like, I mean, I love dessert. I love it, but there's so many things that like, I thought I really, really liked, that now I'm like, this is too sweet for me. Like, I can't eat any more of this. And that doesn't happen unless you remove all the restriction.
Because you don't feel like it's like an off limit food, and you have one day to eat it, and that's all you get. Yeah.
And I mean, and to top it off, like I'm married, you know, and so we have, you know, we eat meals together. And so like removing the stress from that, when he's like, you know, can we do pizza tonight? And I don't need to have a meltdown anymore. Like, it's just not necessary.
It's so true though. And once you kind of liberate yourself from that, it's amazing how, I mean, you heal in so many other ways too, without occupying your focus just completely on food all the time.
Well, and it gives you so much empathy too, which I think is so important. Living this experience, being a recovered calorie counter, getting rid of my activity trackers, and like just having the freedom to eat the foods that I want and how much that, you know, my body says I should have, having the ability to do that, and to be able to teach someone else to do that that's struggling, it's just, it's so powerful. And it's such an honor to be able to do that.
I'm sure I was going to ask, like, you know, when you work with clients, obviously they're seeking you out for that particular reason, because you do that's the way you practice. So, I mean, most of the time, are they just completely, you know, calorie counters, obsessed with food? Do you have people that are teetering on intuitive eating, or, you know, where does it all start for some of your clients?
So it varies so much. So for example, I had a client last week, it doesn't really have struggles with food per se, or particular like history with, being overweight or anything like that. But was just looking for like general nutrition information. And for him to find out that it's okay to eat a banana, and if you want a banana and peanut butter, you can also have that. That's perfectly fine if that's what, you know, you're craving today, and that's what your body says you should have. I mean, he was dumbfounded that was okay. So, I mean, it could be a range from someone just looking for general nutrition information, that's expecting me to kind of spit out a laundry list of restrictions to have me not do that, to someone that's struggled with their weight their entire life, has been on 14 plus diets and had gastric bypass and not had success. You know, it really runs the gamut of where somebody is. But the most important part is you meet the person where they are. Sure.
And you have to listen to them to figure that out.
Oh,
You're like, where are you? Why did he think bananas were bad? I'm curious, because I hear that a lot.
Okay. So it's like people think fruit is really, really bad for you, and you shouldn't eat it because it has sugar. So I shared on my Instagram stories, I think it was yesterday or the day before. I was watching some TV, and it was, fixer upper because you gotta love Joanna.
Good show.
But, you know, I couldn't fast forward through it. And I'm glad that I couldn't because I caught this commercial for Atkins bars. And it was Rob Lowe talking about how if you have sugar and protein together, the sugar destroys the good effects from the protein. And I'm just like, no, that is false. Rob. That is so, I'm like, how could you do that, Rob Lowe? Like, what are you thinking? But you can't blame the actor, right? Because he just read what was written.
He's read the script, yes.
Yeah. But I mean, it's, you know, these kinds of messages are what's shared to people all the time. And that's, you know, there's a virality to inaccurate nutrition information. If it's black or white, it tends to spread very quickly. And you and I both know very well that nutrition is not black or white.
Mm-hmm. You probably saw that in your research too, just with working with different, you know, like news and marketing and things like that, where how again, like a commercial like that, people for some reason are drawn to. I mean, it's like bees, you know, flies to honey or something. I don't know what it is, but people, they get obsessed about things that they see on TV or read or see in social media.
Well, it's not even just that. It's this other component that we're afraid of death. And if we can kind of limit our exposure to things that might be bad for us, you know, that plays a huge role into it. That's a huge contributor to like the wellness movement. It's our fear of getting older and passing away. Like we want to be able to live as long as we possibly can, as healthy as we possibly can. And when, you know, we hear these things like, you know, sugar's bad for you, sugar causes cancer. These are these black and white things that spread really, really fast.
I never thought of it that way, but that's totally true, as people are very concerned about their mortality at the end of the day, like what they can do to keep themselves alive longer.
I mean, at the end of the day, we all want to, you know, do what's best for our bodies. And if there's any inkling that, you know, something is toxic to us. So, I mean, anything that sounds like a chemical is bad. I mean, this is, you know, this is the culture that we live in. And that's what we're working with. And it's gone on a long time. So I know that there's like research that like shows that, you know, thousands of years ago in China, they were restricting gluten for, you know, different purposes. And, there's a really interesting book on it. It's about how nutrition is tied to like religious beliefs. Oh, yeah. And how our views on nutrition are very similar to our views on like politics or religion, how they kind of embed in our psyche that same way. It's really interesting.
I would love to read that. So you'll have to, if you come across that, send that to me for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of those subconscious things you don't even realize is happening, and it's happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so when did you graduate with your doctorate?
That was actually a year ago.
A year ago. I was going to say, I thought it was around your first year anniversary coming up with that. That's so exciting.
Yep, it was. And I think it was the 8th. So we're just over it.
Just over it. How much free time do you have now? Isn't it fantastic?
Oh my goodness. Getting out of that PhD was like lifting a boulder off my face.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, it hurt. So.
I bet it did. Oh my goodness. Well, and your business is definitely a full-time business for you that you work from your home.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work full time for myself. I do still teach some nutrition classes for the university and for the community college here, which I really enjoy doing. All of that stuff is also online.
Wow.
So I am my own coworker most of the time.
You're a virtual goddess.
I love it. I really enjoy it. I've found so many ways that I can interact with people that are online in a way as if, we're sitting right next to each other, which I think is really important that we use those tools. I think I probably have a knack. I think my family lives back east and I'm in Arizona.
Oh, wow.
So I'm the only one that really lives out west. And I kind of got used to communicating with people from a distance for a long time. And it's become my norm. Excuse me.
Well, and that's where I think, don't you feel like this is kind of where our profession is going though, when it comes to convenience and telehealth and just being able to reach a bigger population without being confined to your community or where you're personally at?
Absolutely. I think it's a huge benefit for our profession. I also think that it adds a level of comfortability for people. So when I have virtual sessions with my clients and they're able to sit in their own home or they're able to run into their kitchen so they can grab a product and show it to me.
Oh, that they wanted to ask I never thought of that.
There's all kinds of benefits to being able to do this. I think nutrition is such a personal experience, and especially when you're teaching intuitive eating, having someone be comfortable in their surroundings is a huge benefit.
I definitely think I think that's the way to go. And I think like you said, they can go grab a product, they can show you, you can visually
it's so
see
helpful.
What kind of environment they're in. Yeah. I mean, you just get so much more insight into the person, I think.
Yeah. I mean, and if they're doing it on their phone, they can carry me into their kitchen. They can show me what's in their fridge. It's just, they get so many more questions answered in real time with their own items, which is so helpful for people. I think the days of sterile office appointments are going away.
I think so. Well, and white coat syndrome and, the fear of all of that clinic kind of hospital setting. I think that is going to go away because people don't love it. They never have.
Yeah. I'm not a fan. I don't like going to the doctor's office. I found a new doctor's office that they did it in a way where it's more like a spa. So I'm comfortable to go there, but I still only go there when I absolutely have to. And I think with nutrition's one of those things that people like to put off, because it doesn't ever feel like it's super emergent unless you have a situation where the person ends up in the hospital. And just having that comfortability factor for them. And it also gives us a lot of flexibility. So it gives us the ability to, work from our office, or so this summer I have a desk in my RV that I can do my consults from if I want.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it gives you a lot of flexibility that you wouldn't normally have. And I think that's good for all of us.
Sure. And how do you kind of get your clients? Do clients kind of find you by word of mouth? Do you?
Yeah, word of mouth, but also social media. So I have a lot of people find me on social media that reach out to me. Also, there's doctor's offices and things like that will refer and stuff like that.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah. So they come in from all kinds of places.
They find you. They'll find you if they want you.
Oh, yeah. And that's definitely true. They will definitely find you if you have a service that they're looking for. And I think you need to know who your ideal client is. And this plays into, how I create social media content too, and how I teach my social media my social media course. Because you need to know who your ideal client is, and everybody shouldn't be for you. So I turn away clients all the time, because they're not the right fit for me. And if they're not the right fit for me, I'm doing them a disservice by taking their business.
I 100% agree with that. And I think it's okay to turn away clients if they're not the right fit. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. I mean, you can't do your job, if it's not your ideal client, because you're not going to be able to provide the service that they're looking for. And you want them to have a good experience. You want them to, feel like they got their money's worth. You want them, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things that, you need to work with the people who you can help. And if you can't help somebody, then you shouldn't take them on as a client.
Exactly. And it's a waste of your time and it's a waste of their time.
Yeah.
And I always say time is your biggest currency. So do what's best for both situations.
Absolutely. Time is currency. And that's another reason why I just love the virtual world, because I have so much flexibility in what I can do with my time, and my consulting and everything else. It gives so much leeway in a world where there isn't a lot.
Sure. How many hours do you think you work a week? Like, what's your work week hours?
Like time frame, like 8 to 5, or do you mean like total hours?
Or no, like just total hours. Like when you are working, like how many total hours do you think you work?
Probably 40 plus if we count everything.
Because you do the consulting and all that stuff as well, and teaching and.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely, it's a lot what I'm doing, but I am super motivated to grow, and push my business forward. And that takes time and that takes energy. Even things like when you're growing your own business, ideas pop into your head all the time.
I bet.
So, when that happens, and I, if I'm relaxing or whatever, and I'm like, this is like, I feel inspired at this moment, I just go for it. And, but I'm doing what I love. So it doesn't really feel like work, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I truly believe some people are like, oh, that's just crap. People just say that. And I'm like, no, I think that's true. It's
totally true. Like if I was in your standard, like 8 to 5 job right now, working 40 hours, that 40 hours would feel like probably 450 or something. It would feel awful.
It'd be bad.
And this is like, it doesn't feel awful. It feels really enjoyable. Like I get excited. Like, I mean, it's Monday, but I'm not sad or upset that it's Monday, because like I enjoy what I'm doing. I look forward to, doing the tasks that I do every day. And I think a lot of it too is every day is different for me. So it's not mundane. It's not the same. And that has its pluses and minuses for sure. But, I've always been one of those people that I like to do a lot of things at one time. And this definitely affords me the ability to do that. 1 minute I'm a secretary. The next I'm an accountant. The next I'm a social media manager. The next I'm dealing with a tax guy. It's just all kinds of stuff that you're dealing with that you don't anticipate until you're like really in the trenches of your own business.
Sure. Well, that makes sense. And you are everything. So it does take a little bit of extra time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think by next year I will definitely have help.
Well, good. That's good to know too, that you will be, thriving, and that will be something that you will need some assistance with.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that creates more room for, like possibly a younger RD or something to like help them understand this particular kind of business and how that works. Because as a student, that was definitely, these were the questions that I had. How do you run your business? Where do you get your clients? How does this all work? Like, what's it like being, the only employee, So like when you want to throw an idea off of somebody, like, in my office talking to myself. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But
you're like talking to your puppy or.
Yeah. I mean, and that's definitely a perk, so my dogs are always with me. So that's nice. Yes. Constant love is definitely a positive. Yes.
Support and love.
But sometimes it feels a little unnerving because you're alone. You don't have anyone else to talk to sometimes. And, if you're trying to work through something and figure out what the best route is, you really have to know who you are as a person and what you're capable of, to move forward in those kinds of situations because you don't have a lot of support. I mean, luckily my husband is super, super supportive. So I have him, which is really, really nice. But,
yeah, that's great. That's very important. You have to have a supportive spouse.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because otherwise when you're like, I've got an idea, it's 7 p.m. They'll be like, no.
You're like, no, I'm watching TV and Netflix. I can't deal with you right now.
Right. And I'm like, I need to talk about this. No.
Can you chat about this? Can you just listen to me ramble for a little while?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm excited for just to continue to follow you. I mean, I know that it's such a great social media presence, and that's how we actually connected. And I think you're doing such a great job with just how you provide such accurate and adequate knowledge for people that need it. And I've learned a lot from you as well.
Thank you. That means so much. And I've learned so much from you. I feel like you're such an open and caring person, and what you share on social media is really, really inspiring. So keep it up.
I thank you for that too. Well, we are in a good company with each other. And I think it's great that we can connect with dietitians like that on a social media space and learn from dietitians on that space as well. So you're the expert in it though. So I feel really fortunate to be part of your tribe. So that's awesome.
I'm happy, so happy to have you as a member because I feel like those positive connections, social media can be really, it can be really negative if you let it. So like forming those positive connections with people. And then luckily I got to meet you briefly in person.
Yes.
Like that makes a world of difference.
It does. And I'm like, I think I plan trips now because I'm like, oh, well, I know there's a dietitian there and I could go meet her.
Yes.
So I know I need to head your way at some point too, because I would love to even spend a little bit more time with you in person. And
I'd love that.
Learn more
about
you
fun.
As well. Yes. And but I'm not going to come in the summer. So I'll come when it's cold in Iowa.
I wouldn't let you do that. You'd fry. You don't want to do that.
Yes, I would. Well, I know that I ask you a lot of hard questions. I have some fun questions for you. And I think it'd be great if we checked in again, like next year and just had like a quickie call and kind of see what you're up to. And
yeah, that'd be super fun.
That are ahead for you. So why don't you share with me favorite food that you enjoy?
Can I pick a category?
Sure, absolutely.
I'm going to go with dessert.
Dessert. I am so with you on dessert. When you said that, I was like, oh, she's my soul sister because I love dessert.
I love it. I think it's fantastic. I don't really discriminate on the type of dessert. So yeah, dessert is my jam.
Do you know I will order dessert if I'm really wanting dessert. I'll do that before my entree and I will eat that first.
Oh girl, I am with you. If that's what you want, like that's intuitive eating right there. Like if that's what you're craving, Absolutely. Like that's what you should be having. Like sometimes I have dessert for breakfast because why not? Like
exactly. It's not going to ruin your day, people. Go ahead.
No, and it's better than me thinking about it and stalking it for like 8 hours.
All day. Stalking dessert. That's so funny. I'm with you. Do you have a favorite beverage?
Yes, I love matcha tea. I'm obsessed. I love it.
You make it at home?
I do.
A little swirly thing? Yes.
I do.
I really like it too. I'm surprised I like it because, green tea tastes really grassy, I think, to me, but matcha doesn't taste grassy to me. I don't know.
It definitely has a smoother consistency. And to be honest, because I've always been a fan of tea. It's just like tea in general. I will that's my beverage of choice if I go out to eat or something, if I'm not just drinking water. And matcha tea, I feel like the caffeine in it is a much more like gradual.
Yes.
And more relaxing. And I feel like, it gives me a nice energy, but I don't get any like jittery feelings. And it doesn't give me, I feel like if I drink like too much just regular like black tea or green tea, like I start to get like a little heartburn or something like towards the afternoon. And the matcha tea doesn't do that.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And it's so much, I felt like you said, the caffeine, it's like a gradual kind of make you give you some energy kind of gradually throughout the day.
Yeah, because I cannot do the stuff with the jitters. I just can't.
No, I can't focus then. I'm like, what's your favorite color?
Ooh, teal. Like that seafoam teal color. It's everywhere and I love it.
So is matcha. I think you're very trendy.
Yeah, I mean, if I could pick a second color, it would be millennial pink. So I think I'm probably pretty on trend. But in my defense, I liked them before they were trendy. So I feel like that's fair game.
It's rooted deep in you.
It is. It's a pastel thing. I've never been like a harsh, like bold color kind of person. I've always done like the pastel pinks and things like that. I remember even a girlfriend in like high school, she was like, girl, we need to get like some more black in your wardrobe or something. You're too colorful. And I'm like, no, I need pastels. Like this is why.
Well, that's why I loved your lip gloss. I'm like, she has the best colored lip gloss.
Oh, lip gloss is the best. There's nothing like, like just putting on a good lip gloss and going on with your day. Like, I feel like it's like one of the best accessories.
100%. I have a ton of them. I bet you do too.
Oh yeah. Tons.
What is your favorite scent?
Vanilla, hands down.
Vanilla.
I know that's super vanilla of me to pick vanilla, but I love it.
Super vanilla. Is that a bumper sticker?
Right? I should put that on a bumper sticker. I'm vanilla because I love vanilla.
And what brings you joy in life?
Seeing other women achieve food freedom it brings me so much joy to see someone who is so afraid of their food choices to have like just feel free and calm and confident in their decisions. It brings me so much joy.
I bet it does. That's so great. I think you just found dietetics and you found your where you're supposed to be, and you're helping so many people. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I'm just glad I get to help in this world because I definitely didn't feel like I was doing that as a mortgage broker. So this is definitely an upswing.
Well, that's good. Well, I thank you for today. And again, we will check back in with you in about a year. I'm going to see what you're up to, but I will definitely put your social media handles on our show notes so people can definitely go follow you and reach out and connect with you. Yes, absolutely. Send me some messages. I'm happy to chat with you or give you any advice or whatever. I get dietetic students reaching out all the time and I love chatting with them. Oh, good. That's good. I love that too. So you're a great fit for that. Well, enjoy your day. I enjoyed this conversation so very much. And Claudia is such a down-to-earth person who isn't afraid to share her story, show her story, and help others along the way. If you are interested in working with her or just being part of her community, make sure to connect with her on social media listed in the show notes. And of course, you can always go to her website, claudiafelty.com, to learn more. My website, Anna Elizabeth RD, is where you can read my latest weekly wisdom blog post, where I share my current adventures, maybe craft up some delicious food I'm eating, and my fabulous music playlist I create for my fitness. I might also include a really delicious real deal recipe, and I always like to share with you what I'm loving right now. You will find all my previous podcast show notes and links to things we talked about during all my conversations with my favorite people, and you can also purchase my book from the website. Please connect with me on social media by finding me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest at Ann Elizabeth RD. Remember to be great always, find the joy in each day, and to start a conversation that truly matters.